for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our meeting today. May our discussions be fruitful, our decisions wise, and our community strong. Amen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here. You have before you the minutes of regular meeting on February 6, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve waiving reading of the same?
So moved. Second.
Minutes have been approved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes. This brings us to our first public portion. Anybody wishing to address the board on agenda items only, please raise your hand and you'll have 3 minutes after stating your name and address for the record. Dale?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dale Fellows, 2812 Fowler Drive, Willoughby Hills. Wanted to speak to you about the Lakeland Board of Trustees appointments, and specifically, I know my wife Nancy is a current trustee there and had applied for to be reappointed to the full term. She was just there for the last year and a half. In that year and a half, she did what my wife always does. She jumped in with both feet, learned an enormous amount of information about Lakeland itself. Of course, she came with 20 years of experience as a council member, 4 years as president of council, and 8 years on the Ohio Board of Nursing, along with all the other educational stuff that she does. Her profession, of course, is a professional educator for a Fortune 100 company, and travels not only nationally but even internationally to speak. So she knows from where she's coming from, and she did that. And you need to make sure, as I did when I was a commissioner, that you put the very best people into these positions, people that are the most qualified. You certainly want somebody that has some history, especially in the last year and a half of that board. Went through an enormous amount of changes and very needed changes. I myself, who've been associated with Lakeland in one way or another for over almost 50 years now, starting as a student, and I can go through a whole lot of other things that I've been there, and was appalled when I went to the first Finance Committee meeting after she was appointed, which was the first meeting that was occurring after her appointment. What I was appalled at was the financial report. That is my forte, of course, is reading financial reports. And within 5 to 10 minutes, I could quickly surmise that this university is in deep trouble, and that is taking no efforts and no steps in the budget proposed to correct that. And so they were proposing at that time a $2.5 million on the good side deficit versus a $3.5 million on the bad side. Obviously, the board had to make some corrective measures that were necessary to keep and save Lakeland Community College, and the board members are key and integral to that. As Ronald Reagan famously said, government doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. And that was certainly the case with Lakeland Community College. And with Nancy's budgetary expertise, having been on council for many years and other boards and commissions, she, as well as a majority of the board, recognized that and were able to make some corrective actions. Before that, and before she was even there, the state auditors from Columbus had already recognized that Lakeland was in deep trouble financially, and independently, as I understand it, came to the college to start to research. If you read that report, that wasn't completed until March or April of 2024, it will be very insightful. That, along with the Higher Learning Commission that recently was on Lakeland and cited 30-some measures that they need to change to make sure and get the corrective action. The new president of the board, of course, is the president of the college has been there less than a year. He needs this support. I'm sorry.
keeping time there. It didn't go in here, but we're about the 3-minute mark.
Oh, are we? Oh, I'm sorry. So I just would say, I see that you have some agenda items about that. I would ask that you respectfully put those on hold to make sure you are, in fact, review all the facts and decide who, in fact, would be the best persons to be appointed. I know you have 2 appointments, and I truly believe 100%, not just as her husband, but as a person that has been invested in this college for many, many years, that she should be reappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public portion? None being seen. Madam Clerk, if you start with the resolutions.
In the Utilities Department, resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Bell Environmental Engineering Incorporated for 2025 engineering and environmental support services for the Lake County Solid Waste Facility.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Bell Environmental Engineering Incorporated for 2025 air compliance services for the Lake County Solid Waste Facility.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution approving change order number 4 with Shivers Construction Company for Arcola Creek Trunk Sewer Project 454S 2021, increasing the total contract amount by $84,497.20.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing advertising for bids for chemicals for the Lake County Department of Utilities, bid opening March 5th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
In Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving the County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant February 21st, 2025, in the amount of $610,305.45.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution accepting and approving the recommendation of Planning Commission member Timothy C. Brotzman to designate Christopher Bernard to serve as his alternate on the Lake County Planning Commission.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution adopting the Lake County, Ohio travel policy for elected county officers and employees of Lake County.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution revising the Lake County Board of Commissioners regular meeting schedule beginning January 9th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution amending the Lake County Board of Commissioners workshop meeting schedule beginning February 6, 2025, and amending the established rules for the orderly presentation of public comment during workshop meetings.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution appointing Deanna Demore Elsing to the Lakeland Community College Board of Trustees for a 5-year term expiring March 6th. For a 5-year term beginning March 7, 2025 and expiring March 6, 2030.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I would strongly encourage the board to consider the wisdom that former Commissioner Fellows has shared with us today. I've worked with former councilwoman, current trustee Nancy Fellows for many, many years, know her very, very well, and the extraordinary contribution she gives to every organization she volunteers for, she participates in. It's an impact we don't want to lose as Lake County residents. And I fully appreciate that there are many extraordinary people who are interested in these appointments. I have never, to my knowledge, met Deanna Demore. I'm sure she's a lovely person. But what I do know is she's applied for this job with no experience as a member of Lakeland and their Board of Trustees. Nancy is a current board member with 1.5 years of experience. If there ultimately is a vote on these two nominations, as I said, I don't know Deanna. I'm sure she's a wonderful person. I do know Morgan McIntosh. I have the highest respect for him. If there is a vote that effectively removes Nancy Fellows from the board, I will abstain from both of those nominations. And I would close in saying this: in a time when our President Donald Trump is bringing an incredible leadership team to bear, Scott Bessent as Secretary of the Treasury, Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, RFK to finally make America healthy again. He's standing up boldly and appointing strong conservative leadership with the authority he's been given. I don't want to see our panel go the opposite direction. If I were a U.S. Senator, I'd be voting with Husted and Vance. I'd be voting with Bernie Moreno. I know I never will be, not pretending that there's any real comparison between them and I, except that I have the same responsibility at a local level that they have on a national level. And I have every confidence that President Trump would be reappointing Nancy Fellows. So I'm going to vote like Moreno, I'm going to vote like Trump, and I'm going to vote for Nancy Fellows to the extent that I can. And if this board won't consider her nomination, I will abstain.
Thank you for your input. I can tell you about Deanna. There's a big push for workforce development. As you know, it's a big passion of mine. In Lakeland and in many schools throughout the county and the state. I believe Deanna is one of the foremost experts, if you would, in Lake County on that subject. She's done it for Willoughby Eastlake. She's now doing it for Mayfield Schools. So it's in the things I'm passionate about. She's, I think, highly qualified in those areas. Commissioner, I don't know if you want to add.
Nope.
Guess we're to vote.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Abstain.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution appointing Morgan R. McIntosh to the Lakeland Community College Board of Trustees for a 5-year term beginning March 7, 2025 and expiring March 6, 2030.
So moved.
Second. Madam Clerk, any discussion on this one? Same.
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Abstain.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $10,313,487.88.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution approving payment of bills to CT Consultants Incorporated as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $8,407.37.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Abstain.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,515,040.77.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for various general and non-general fund accounts.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Beveridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes. This brings us to departmental reports. Utilities.
No report today, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Job and Family Services.
No report today, thank you.
County Administrator.
I have no report, Commissioner.
Clerk.
Yes, the next commissioner meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 20th at 10 a.m. And also I wanted to mention that we have a workshop today at 10:30. And also the changes to the meeting schedule will be posted online this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. And legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you. Is there any old business to come before us?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would once again encourage my colleagues to consider the resolution that I've authored against the massive and unfair increases in property taxes on our residents in Lake County and across Ohio. Commissioner Dave Moore of Lorraine recently reached out asking for a copy of my resolution. His county is also concerned about these issues. We've had a long time to consider the language. And I think it's a very strong proposal to reach out to our legislators and ask them to keep their campaign promise to reform property taxes now. I've got postcards from all of them claiming that they want to do it, so presumably they're on our side, but sometimes a nudge helps. And we need to direct them that a half measure is not going to be enough this time. We need to see real reform, and in my mind, that's a 100% property tax exemption for our seniors. 65 years of paying taxes is enough, and there should be a freeze on values when you buy your property. That should set the value until you sell it. That's an objective value. It's not constructed by the state, and it gives you certitude what your taxes are going to be each year. Later at our work session, we're going to be talking about HB 15, which ironically provides property tax relief for the one person who doesn't need it, for-profit power plants. We're going to be exempting nuclear power plants and forcing grandma and grandpa to pay even more to keep all the lights on in our public schools. I think it's outrageous that the first property tax reform that Columbus proposes is to exempt power plants and dump the liability on grandma and grandpa. So I would strongly advocate that we push back on HB 15 and the damage it would do to Lake County families, and that my colleagues consider a resolution advocating that our state legislators go back to Columbus, keep the promise they've already made. They were very excited about property tax reform when they were running for re-election last November. Let's get them to actually vote on something, bring it to the floor, and start to reverse the damage that's being done to our senior citizens, to those on a fixed income, to disabled veterans, and frankly, to all Lake Countyans and all Ohioans.
Thank you. I think we could probably put something together there. I don't know that a complete property tax for anybody overseas tries to answer. I've talked to many of our colleagues throughout the county who see how that may hurt their, but there's got to be some form of that they can do something, and I think they have some tools in front of them, and it's just getting a little scary to me that, you know, especially with Senate Bill 15. It just seems like it's just take, and ultimately that's going to come, I believe, in the form of either higher power rates or which is essentially a tax, and school systems have to then bail out and pass more levies. So it just gets handed to the local entity, and we're trying to keep that up. So,
Mr. President, I don't think a day goes by when I don't hear from a senior citizen in Lake County who says, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. And they're wrestling right now with the reality of selling their house, having to move out of state, having to rent an apartment, and not even being able to find an apartment with a reasonable rate of rent they can afford. These are real life problems that are affecting people right now. The bills are no longer in the mail, they've been delivered, and people are struggling to find a way to pay them. And while we don't have the power to change state law at this dais, we do have the bully pulpit to tell our state reps and senators, we heard you loud and clear when you said you were going to fix this. We need you to follow through. And it can't be in a year or 2 years or 3. And property tax reform is not exempting nuclear power plants from taxes and dumping that additional burden on grandma and grandpa. That's not the property tax reform we sent you to Columbus to do.
agreed. Commissioner, anything to add?
I echo your thoughts, and I assure you, when we have something concrete and actionable, I will be shoulder to shoulder with you, as louder and louder when it comes to expressing to Columbus our displeasure with how they've handled property taxes.
Okay. Any more old business? New business? Is there any new business?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to make a proposal. I would like to make a motion that our clerk be directed to draft a resolution for our next meeting honoring Mentor, Lake County native, former Ohio State football coach Jim Tressel on his nomination and appointment to Lieutenant Governor of Ohio. I think it's an extraordinary thing that a Lake Countyan has gone on to the second highest office in the state. Not quite as impressive as winning national championships and beating Michigan, but still. We are overdue in recognizing one of Lake County's favorite sons for an extraordinary accomplishment, and I would make a motion to direct the clerk to draft a resolution in honor of Lieutenant Governor Jim Tressel of Mentor, Lake County, Ohio.
Commissioner Plechnik, while you and I don't always see eye to eye on the proclamations and the certificates, I don't know that I can argue with honoring somebody who's beat Michigan as many times as Jim Tressel did. So I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? All I gotta say is they didn't have to pay him extra to beat Michigan. And our latest coach just got another raise, so. But,
Commissioner Beveridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Reagan.
yes. I'd also like to say, yesterday I had my first, as I chaired the Next Gen 911 meeting. I think it was pretty fruitful. We have some work to do, and we're trying to get our plan for Lake County on all of our dispatch centers, PSAPs, if you will, to the state. Hopefully by April or so. I'm hoping to have that plan together. We'll have another meeting probably mid-March. The Sheriff's Department and their head of their dispatch centers heavily involved in putting a report together, and we will use that as a document as in the group, and I think we're moving forward in the right direction. So just an update there. If there's nothing else, then we have an executive session. So I have a motion to adjourn executive session with no business being conducted after this completion, and we will have the meeting directly after that, so we can step out for executive.
For purposes of?
For purposes of personnel, discipline, and legal pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Beveridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner